Imagine this, you're alone at 3 a.m, a single black candle burning, you speak 7 forbidden names. The air turns ice cold. Something answers, and it already knows your real name. What you just performed comes from a book so dangerous that the Vatican ordered every copy burned on sight. A book attributed to a real pope who supposedly sold his soul for absolute power. This is not the Necronomicon. This is not fiction. This is the Grimoire of Honorius, one of the most feared occult manuscripts in human history. And tonight, for the first time in French on YouTube, we're going to reveal what's really inside. If you have even the slightest interest in forbidden knowledge, the occult or real black magic that terrified the Inquisition, stop everything you're doing. Turn off the lights, put on headphones, and right now, send this video to that one friend who's obsessed with the dark side. Tell them, man, you need to see this before it gets taken down. Let's descend together. We begin where the nightmare starts, with a pope. Yes, a real pope, the one who sat on St. Peter's throne from 1216 to 1227, Honorius III, the man who approved the Dominican order, who put the hammer in the hands of the Inquisition, who literally wrote the book on how to hunt and burn heretics. And yet, less than 70 years after his death, a grimoire appears that claims he is the author. A grimoire that teaches you, step by step, how to force demons, angels, and aerial spirits to obey you like slaves. How is that possible? The Church's official story is simple. Total forgery, diabolical slander against a holy pontiff. But here's what they don't tell you in seminary. The Grimoire of Honorius didn't just pop up overnight. The earliest known Latin manuscripts date to the late 13th and early 14th century, exactly when the papal court at Rome was drowning in accusations of sorcery. Popes were consulting astrologers, alchemists, even necromancers. Honorius himself owned Arabic and Hebrew magical texts in the Vatican library. We have the inventories. So when a book explodes across Europe claiming I, Honorius, Supreme Pontiff, wrote this with my own hand so that the elect may command the spirits, people believed it, and that belief alone was enough to get you tied to a stake. Now look closer with me. The grimoire never says the historical Honorius wrote it while he was alive. It says he wrote it after he received a divine vision, after he understood that the keys of Peter also open other doors. In fact, the text insists the Pope composed it for the salvation of the faithful and the confusion of the demons. That's the genius twist. It presents itself as a holy weapon, a sanctified counter-magic that only a pope would have the authority to wield. You and I both know what that really means, the ultimate blasphemy disguised as piety. By the 15th century, the book is already on every index of forbidden books. Possessing it equals automatic excommunication. Copies are copied in terror, hidden between the walls of monasteries, smuggled inside pilgrim baggage. Scribes write fake colophons claiming it's a herbal or a prayer book, anything to escape the flames. And every single copy repeats the same chilling line in the prologue. This book is so great and of such immense power that it must never fall into the hands of the unworthy, under pain of eternal damnation. Think about that with me for a second. A book attributed to the Vicar of Christ himself, teaching you how to summon Lucifer's lieutenants by name, how to make them appear in human form, how to bind them with pacts signed in blood, and the Church's only defense is, it's a lie, the Pope would never. But the damage is done. For 8 centuries, thousands of magicians, priests, monks, and desperate nobles have whispered that maybe, just maybe, the Pope did leave us the real keys. The black ones. We are only at the surface and already the ground feels unstable under our feet. In the next part, we'll follow the forbidden manuscripts through inquisitorial fires, secret societies, and the hands of the most terrifying occultists in history. Because this book didn't just survive, it infected everything it touched. Before we go deeper, tell me in the comments right now, had you ever heard of the Grimoire of Honorius before tonight? Yes or no? Drop it below, because things are about to get much darker. We pick up the trail in the 14th century, when the first Latin copies begin to circulate like a plague. These are not printed books yet. Printing doesn't exist. Every single Grimoire of Honorius is handwritten on expensive parchment, which means only the rich, the clergy, or the insanely reckless can own one. And every owner knows the sentence. If the Holy Office finds this, we burn with it. Yet the book spreads faster than the Black Death. From Italy, it jumps to Avignon during the Papal Schism, then to Spain, Germany, and France. Monks copy it in the dead of night inside Benedictine and Cistercian abbeys. We have proof. In 1335, a Dominican inquisitor in Carcassonne discovers a complete copy hidden inside a hollowed-out altar. The monk who owned it is tortured until he reveals he received it from a priest in Toulouse, who got it from a canon in Lyon, who swore he copied it from a manuscript kept in the papal palace itself. The trail always leads back to Rome. Every time the Inquisition burns a copy, 3 more appear somewhere else. By the 16th century, the panic is total. Pope Paul IV personally adds the Grimoire of Honorius to the very first index Librorum Prohibitorum in 1559, in the highest category, books whose mere possession equals heresy. But that only makes it more desirable. In 1599, a German printer in Lyon dares to publish a partial Latin edition under a false imprint. Within weeks, the entire print run disappears, confiscated or bought in secret. We still have the police report. The printer is arrested, the presses are smashed, yet surviving copies from that run sell today for more than a house. The 17th century is the golden age of clandestine copying. French and Italian magicians create luxurious versions on vellum, bound in black leather with silk bookmarks dyed blood red. Some of these manuscripts are signed by their owners, priests who celebrate Mass by day and conjure by night. One famous copy, now in the Bibliothèque de l'Arsenal in Paris, belonged to a 17th century Parisian priest who wrote in the margin, "I have seen them, they obey." He was never caught. Then comes the 18th century and the birth of the great occult libraries. The book is now mandatory in every serious magician's collection. We find it in the library of Étienne Léon de la Motte Langon, in the hands of the Comte de Saint-Germain, in the secret archives of the strict observance Masonic rite. Even the Vatican, ironically, keeps several copies locked in the index section of its own library. For study, they say. Napoleon's soldiers loot half of Europe's monasteries, and suddenly dozens of medieval manuscripts surface. Some end up in private hands, others are sold to English collectors. In 1809, Francis Barrett quotes entire passages in his famous book, The Magus, without naming the source. Everyone knows what he means. The 19th century sees the first full printed editions in French and Italian, always with fake places of publication. Cologne, Memphis, Constantinople. The printers know they risk prison, but the money is insane. The 20th century should have killed it. 2 world wars, libraries bombed, collections scattered. But no. In 1970s Paris, underground occult publishers released new editions with introductions that still warn, "Do not read the conjurations aloud." In the 1990s, the first scanned manuscripts appear on the early internet, hidden behind passwords on private FTP sites. By the 2000s, you can order a perfect facsimile from a printer in Romania for less than a smartphone. And here we are. Right now, you and I are living proof that every bonfire, every papal bull, every raid by the Holy Office failed. The book is more alive today than when it was written. Copies change hands for 5-figure sums in private Facebook groups. Digital scans are shared on Telegram channels with thousands of members, and every single person who touches it repeats the same phrase, passed down for 700 years. Once you have it, you can never get rid of it. The manuscript doesn't just survive, it hunts. And in the next part, we're going to open it together and see exactly what it demands from you before you even dare pronounce the first name. Get ready. We're about to cross the line the church drew in blood. You think you can just pick it up and start commanding demons like in the movies? Think again. The Grimoire of Honorius slams the door in your face from the very first line and tells you exactly who is allowed to touch it and who will be destroyed. First demand, you must be a priest. Not a mage, not a sorcerer. A real baptized priest in good standing, who has the power to consecrate the host. Why? Because the entire system is built on the most perverse twist imaginable. Every conjuration is a mockery of the Catholic Mass. The weapons you will use against hell are the same ones you use to call down heaven. If you are not ordained, the spirits will laugh, tear you apart, and drag what's left straight down. The book repeats it like a death sentence. Only the priest can force obedience. Second demand. You must be ready to live like a monk for weeks, sometimes months. Absolute chastity. No women, no men, no touch, no thought. Fasting on bread and water. Confession and communion every single day. You wear only white linen, purified by exorcised water. You sleep on the floor. You speak to no one except your confessor. All of this while you secretly prepare the tools of black magic in a hidden oratory. Imagine the hypocrisy the Inquisition feared most. A priest, outwardly saintly, inwardly preparing to open the gates of hell. Third demand, the place. You cannot work in your bedroom. You need a ruined chapel, an abandoned church, or a room that has never been lived in, consecrated with a full mass that you celebrate alone at midnight. 4 walls, 1 altar, 1 door that faces east. Every inch must be purified with holy water, hyssop, salt, and the smoke of consecrated incense. Then, and only then, you draw the circle, not with chalk. With a new knife that has never tasted blood, dipped in the mingled blood of a white dove and your own veins. Fourth demand, the tools must be virgin. Every single object, wand, sword, lancet, black-handled knife, must be forged by a virgin blacksmith on a Wednesday under a waning moon, then consecrated with prayers that make the exorcists sweat. The black robe you wear is sewn by a virgin girl. The parchment for the sigils comes from a lamb that has never grazed. 1 single impurity, and the spirits will know. They always know. Fifth demand, you must choose your planet and your day. The book forces you to work only under the influence of one of the 7 classical planets. You pick Saturn for curses and necromancy, Jupiter for riches and honors, Mars for vengeance, Sun for glory, Venus for love and corruption, Mercury for knowledge and deception, Moon for illusions and madness. Once you choose, you are married to that planet forever. Change your mind, and the spirits you already bound will turn on you instantly. Sixth and most terrifying demand, you must be ready to die. The text never lies about this. Before every major operation, it warns that if your courage fails for even 1 second, if you mispronounce 1 syllable, if you show fear, the spirit will possess you, rip your soul out through your mouth, and use your body as a gate. Real exorcists who studied the book, yes, they exist, say the possessions linked to Honorius are some of the most violent they have ever seen. We haven't even opened the conjurations yet. We are still standing outside the circle, and already the price is your freedom, your body, your sanity, and probably your soul. Most people close the book right here and never come back. The ones who continue. Well, we'll meet them in the next part, when we finally pronounce the names that cannot be taken back. If everything we just saw already freezes, your blood hit the subscribe button right now with the bell on. You're going to need it for what comes next. Now we step inside the circle with you. The air is thick with incense and fear. The priest-magician stands robed in black, the consecrated host hidden in a silk pouch against his chest, because that is the ultimate leash. In his hand, a short wand of wild hazel, cut at dawn with a single stroke. On the altar, 7 seals drawn in dove blood and virgin wax. It is Monday at the first hour after sunset, or Tuesday for Mars, or whatever planet you sold yourself to. The moment has come. The Grimoire does not waste time with petty spirits. It goes straight for the kings and presidents of the air. Lucifer, Beelzebub, Astaroth, Oriens, Paimon, Aegon, Amaimon, and the countless dukes and princes beneath them. But the genius, the pure terror, is how it forces them to obey. Every single conjuration is structured like the Catholic Mass, except every prayer is twisted into a command. Where the priest normally says, Hoc est enim corpus meum, here he says the equivalent over the spirit's sigil and forces manifestation. First conjuration, you call the spirit by its secret celestial name, the one it had before the fall. You speak it backwards, then forwards, then in corrupted Hebrew. The book gives the exact intonation. rise on the third syllable, fall on the seventh. If you are off by one breath, nothing happens. Or worse, something else answers. Second conjuration, stronger. You show the spirit the consecrated host and threaten to consume it in its presence. That single act is the ultimate blasphemy, because you are using the body of Christ as blackmail against hell. The spirit must now appear in human form, beautiful, terrible, sometimes as a king on a dragon, sometimes as a child with eyes of fire. Third conjuration, the one no one wants to reach. You cut your left arm with the virgin knife. Let 3 drops fall on the sigil and pronounce the license to depart backwards. At that moment the spirit is bound to you for as long as your blood stays warm on the parchment. The pact is sealed without Lucifer's usual tricks. The priest has inverted the entire theology of redemption and turned the Eucharist into the chain. The spirits arrive furious. They threaten, they roar, they try every illusion. Floods of blood on the walls, serpents at your feet, the faces of dead relatives screaming. But the book has an answer for every rebellion. You lift the host higher and speak the terrible, constraining formula that begins ego te conjuro, spiritus en, per virtutem Dei Patris, and ends with the names that burn angelic ears. Exorcists who later treated possessed magicians say the demons screamed loudest when those precise words were used against them in reverse. Once the spirit kneels, yes they kneel, you can demand anything. Buried treasure revealed enemies struck dead in their sleep, invisible servants, the love of any person alive, the secrets of kings, flight through the air, the true names of God. The book lists dozens of operations, each more monstrous than the last. But every time you use the spirit, you must feed it again with fresh blood and another host profaned. This is why the Inquisition lost their minds. They were not afraid of village witches with love potions. They were terrified of ordained priests who could celebrate Mass at noon and command Lucifer at midnight with the same altar, the same chalice, the same consecrated hands. Entire convents were razed because one monk had performed these rites. Surviving trial records describe demons manifesting inside churches during the operation, priests found dead with the host still dissolving on their tongue, and claw marks across the ceiling. We are not done. There is one operation in the Grimoire that goes beyond even these royal conjurations. One rite so vile that most manuscripts leave a blank page before it, as if the scribe himself refused to touch the words. In the next part we will read it together. The Black Mass of Honorius and the sacrifice that grants absolute dominion. Not many reach this point and keep their sanity. You still can turn back. Most don't. We have now arrived at the heart of the abyss. Everything you endured, the fasting, the virginity of the tools, the blood packs, was only the preparation. What comes next is the single operation that made even hardened occultists close the book forever. The Grimoire calls it the Mass of the Spirits, or in the oldest copies, the Mass of Dominion. It is celebrated exactly like a real Catholic Mass, but every gesture, every prayer, every object is reversed, corrupted, and aimed at one goal: to make the magician equal to God by forcing the Trinity itself to bow. You begin at midnight on the day and hour of your chosen planet. The altar is the same one you consecrated weeks ago, but now you cover the crucifix with a black veil and turn it upside down. Instead of wine and water in the chalice, you pour pure spring water mixed with ashes from a burned host and 3 drops of your own blood taken from over the heart. The paten holds not the sacred host, but a black turnip or a toad's heart cut into a perfect circle. Some manuscripts demand a stillborn child's heart. The ones that say this were the copies burned first. You wear the full priestly vestments, but every piece has been exorcised backward and sprinkled with the water of the infernal baptism. In your left hand you hold the short hazel wand. In your right, the consecrated host stolen from a previous mass and kept hidden against your skin for 9 days, so it absorbs your warmth and your sins. The mass begins exactly like the real one. You say the Confiteor, but instead of asking forgiveness, you declare your pride and your will to command. At the offertory, where the priest normally offers bread and wine to God, you offer the blackened host to Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Astaroth by their secret exalted names. At the elevation, the moment when the priest lifts the host and the bell rings in every church on earth, you lift the black circle instead and pronounce the terrible inversion. This is my body, which I give to the spirits of the depths, so that they may give me theirs in return. Then comes the moment no manuscript describes the same way twice, because every scribe trembled too hard. You must consume the profane host together with a written pact that lists everything you want: unlimited riches, absolute power over men and women, invulnerability, the ability to appear in many places at once, the secret of the philosopher's stone. You sign the pact in your blood, fold it 7 times and swallow it with the black host, while pronouncing the final consecration formula that begins hocus pocus. Yes, the children's magic words come from the mocking corruption of hoc est corpus meum used here. At that exact second, the church or chapel fills with a roaring wind. The candles burn blue. The inverted crucifix bleeds from the eyes. Lucifer himself appears, sometimes as a tall man in papal robes wearing the triple tiara, sometimes as a black goat crowned with fire. He places his hand on your head and speaks your new name, the one you will carry in hell. From this moment forward, you are no longer a simple priest. You are the anti-pope of the invisible world. Every spirit, from the lowest elemental to the princes of the air, must obey you as they once obeyed God. The price? Your death belongs to them the instant you try to repent or confess. Many who performed this mass were found days later, strangled by their own stole, eyes burned out, the black host still stuck to the roof of their mouth. This is the operation the grimoire was written to protect. Everything before was the lock. This is the door it opens. One part remains. What happened to the men and women who went through with it, and why even tonight, new copies are still being printed in total secrecy. If your pulse is racing and your skin is crawling right now, do 2 things immediately. Share this video with the one person you know who must never see it. They need to. And drop a single comment below. I learned something tonight. Just that. I'll know you made it this far into the darkness with us. We emerge from the abyss, but the shadow never leaves us. Centuries after the first manuscript appeared, the Grimoire of Honorius still kills. In the 1670s, in Louviers, Normandy, nuns began levitating during Mass, speaking in unknown tongues and drawing perfect copies of the infernal circle on the convent floor with their own blood. The possessed sisters confessed under exorcism that their confessor, a priest who owned a handwritten Honorius, had celebrated the Black Mass over them while they slept. He was burned alive. The nuns were walled up alive. The manuscript vanished from the trial records, yet 30 years later the same symptoms exploded in Loudun. In the 18th century, a Parisian priest known only as Abbé G was found dead in his locked oratory, strangled by his own rosary. The consecrated host fused to his tongue with black wax. On the altar lay an open Grimoire of Honorius, turned to the Mass of Dominion. The Archbishop ordered the body and the book burned together in secret. The ashes were buried under the cathedral. Workers still refused to dig there. In the 19th century, Eliphas Lévi, the most famous occultist of his time, admitted he performed the preliminary conjurations of Honorius in a ruined abbey. He saw the spirit appear, dropped the book, and fled. He never tried again and warned every student, the Grimoire of Honorius is the only one that truly works, and that is why it must never be used. In the 20th century, exorcists of the Rome diocese quietly confirmed that when a possession is particularly violent and resistant to the normal rite, the demon sometimes screams the constraining formulas of Honorius backward as mockery. One Roman exorcist was heard saying, "If I hear the name Oriens pronounced with that exact cadence, I know we are facing a priest who went too far." And today, copies change hands for 5 and 6 figures in private auctions. New luxury editions are printed in less than 100 numbered copies, bound in black goat leather, sold only to people who already know the password. On certain closed Telegram and Discord channels, scans of the rarest manuscripts are traded like nuclear codes. Every year, somewhere in Europe or South America, a priest disappears after celebrating strange masses for special clients. Some are found weeks later, catatonic, drawing the circle of Honorius over and over on the walls of their cell with their own feces. You and I now carry what the Inquisition tried to erase for 800 years. We have read the words that should never be read. We have seen the mechanism that turns a servant of God into his greatest enemy. The book was never destroyed because it doesn't need paper to exist anymore. It lives in every soul that heard what we just said and felt the cold breath on the back of the neck. You wanted the truth about one of the most dangerous books in history. You have it now. Guard it, burn it, or use it. The choice was always yours. If you survived this far, without pausing, without looking away, you know you're not like the others. Go now to the channel. Watch the documentaries on the Picatrix, the Black Pullet, the Red Dragon, the Secretum Secretorum, each one darker than the last. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, because the Forbidden Library never closes. We'll be waiting for you in the next circle. See you soon. Very soon.